You're listening to the Empowering Process podcast with your host, Gail Kraft. Listen as she holds frank discussions around how your purpose, being present, and trusting your power impacts your life. Whether you're an entrepreneur, leader, or developing your vision, you'll find wisdom and insights you can utilize right now. Welcome your host, Gail Kraft.
Love it.
Well, hello, everybody. This is Gail Kraft from the Empowering Process podcast, and I have with me an Aussie, someone from Australia, Athin Cassiotis. Athin has a company, and stop me if I get this wrong, because I still have a Boston problem with forming words correctly, and it's Philotimo Global.
Is that correct? Philotimo is how you would say it, but very close. You did well.
Philotimo. Yes. Okay, so he's a business growth strategist, international speaker, coach, mentor, consultant, investor, and of course, podcast host. He helps service-based business owners grow and scale to create freedom and choice in their life. Athin hosts the Business Growth Show, where he interviews successful entrepreneurs and celebrities, including Jay Abraham, Bruce Buffer, Jillian Michaels, JT Fox, Kerwin Ray, and we could go on and on and on. He's amazing. He's been doing this for a while, and he has an amazing reach. And he has spoken on stage in front of 2.5 thousand, so it's 2,500 people. Oprah's partner. Oh, here we go. Alongside gold medalist Stephen Bradbury and Brenny Surin, and I love Stedman Graham. She's Oprah's partner. He's Oprah's partner, and JT Fox. So we'll talk a little bit about Stedman. He was personally worked with many of Australia's biggest brands, including Target, Kmart, Westfield, Coles, and Department of Defense, which is huge as a coach to get something like that, and as a strategist. So welcome, Athin, to the Empowering Process podcast.
Thank you so much, Gal. Awesome to be here. Lovely intro, and looking forward to getting stuck into things and helping your audience to grow.
Oh my goodness, yes, absolutely. So, where to begin? There's let's talk about, you tell your story about how you got to this point in your life as both an entrepreneur and as a business strategist and business coach. I know we talked about NLP, both of us being a master's in that process, that how we got there. I know for me, it was like, okay, I guess I'm supposed to be here. So talk a little bit about how you got to where you're at.
Yeah, thank you, Gail. So I grew up in Adelaide, South Australia, which is a smaller capital city. And both my parents are high school teachers. So I was very indoctrinated, into the school world. As you can imagine, played a lot of sport when I was young, soccer and tennis, mostly. And my entrepreneur journey actually started selling VCD movies. I don't know if you remember these, but these were before DVDs, and a movie was on 2 normal CDs, and I had the original burners, and I would sell them. Got it from my cousin, and I would burn them, and I would sell like 4 or 5 copies for $10 each.
Is that called black marketing?
It was a little bit, yes, back then, but I was being strategic, because I was like, I don't know who else had a burner, so I had to do a mass order, because then they could probably copy it themselves. So that was my first entrepreneurial journey, which is interesting, in year 10, around 15, 16 years old. And then towards the end of my high school, I wasn't enjoying school anymore. And year 12 had some challenges there, and basically left. And I dropped out of my final year. And you can imagine my parents being high school teachers, they didn't like that. And they were like, okay, how do we get you to uni a different way? They tried to get me into this bridging course and do it there. And, wasn't enjoying that either, and had to pass this subject. I didn't try, and I got 49%, right? 1% off. So it was the universe, right? It was, showing me that this wasn't my path at that time. That's the way I took of it. And my dad said, if you don't pass, you got to get a job. All right. So I got a job, 2 companies, but got a job at a big environmental company when I was 18, and worked my way up. And within 6 months, I took over all major reporting for 2 Australian states. I was just turned 19 years old. Implemented the new computer system, SAP or SAP, as one of the biggest in the world. Did a lot of cool stuff. We wrote the sales report. Did a lot of cool things, and almost going to become a sales rep after 5.5 years. I was being trained finally because I was very useful in the office. They were sort of holding me back a little bit. But then I got tapped on the shoulder by the head office in Sydney, and they said, "Hey, I want you to move to Sydney, be the middleman with all of our national accounts and everything there." And I thought, well, what a great move to go to the big city of Sydney, because Adelaide's a bit like a big country town, and then to go to where it's happening, right, in one of the two big cities in Australia. And I had a couple of cousins there, and anyway, made the move, and that was a very big shock initially, right? Like very much more fast paced. I'm like, I have to, I have to work a lot more hours initially to do what I had to do. And but it was very powerful because I was working on a lot of different things in big tenders and changing the whole company from a national level, which is very powerful. Now, I wanted to learn more about business, I realized later, and everyone's got these degrees. And I know you, Gal, you didn't have your, your formal education, right? In that type of thing as well. And everyone, so I was like, okay, I got to learn something because I've just learned on the job, haven't even passed school, right? And even though I was good at what I did. And basically, I was looking at how can I learn more about business? People saying Bachelor of Business, but I realized I could get into doing an MBA, a Master of Business Administration, based on my over 8 years experience of working, which is great, one of the top universities. So I thought, all right, I'm going to do it. Now, to rewind a little bit, why this is important is because when I dropped out and didn't go to university, my dad told me you'll never be able to study. Right. That's the limiting belief that he told me because he had 3 degrees and he just saw me that, what I was back then. Mm-hmm. And my teachers told me I'd never be successful because I dropped out, because I took the easy road or whatever like that. And, I took it as fuel in those moments, because you can just, agree with what people say, or you can say, I'll prove you wrong. Right. In that way, that's fine. And so I was like, I'm going to do this MBA. And I know that it is challenging for me to study to an extent. However, I'm driven to learn because I really want to learn a lot about business, but I also want to prove that I can actually do it, through the challenges that life isn't always easy, and completed most of the core subjects. But then my final year, change of management, wasn't enjoying it. And I was put under extreme amounts of stress. So they were basically getting rid of all of the older guard in the company. They were making whole departments redundant, right? Like it was pretty full on time. And I was in my national business development department. I was the only person that I was there for 10.5 years. That was there still. Everyone else was new. And they were basically performance managing me, right? To try and break me. That was the way so that I would leave.
Been there.
Right? It's not a nice thing, but I thought to myself, I'm not going to let them break me. And, whatever doesn't kill me makes me stronger. So I'm going to go through this. Now, I was being screamed at in front of the whole team, and the whole floor could hear it because it's open plan. A lot of the time going to his office every half an hour with my boss, I was, I wasn't sleeping, well, because, he's like, you should be stressed. Why aren't you stressed? And I'm trying to keep my, my stress levels down to do the work. Broke out with pimples everywhere. People would look at me like, are you okay? So, but I did that for a year, and my stress, was quite interesting on how I managed that. And then in the end, they were just like, hey, let's have a chat, and, parted amicably, I guess, and got my long service paid out and everything like that. Right. So, and then, they allowed me to start my business. And, my first business was a waste management consulting business. So waste and recycling industry, took all my knowledge and started working with the big brands, like you mentioned earlier, and putting that out there to help them on that side of the fence. And then, people would come to me at networking events and say, oh, Athin, what's going on? And, I've got my business, I've got these challenges. What do you think? I'm like, why don't you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? And they're like, that's awesome. Can you just say that again? I just need to write that down. Right. And so, I've got a very good memory and a very good strategic brain to connect ideas together. So through my experiences, through my MBA, through my coaches and mentors, very good at strategizing. It's one of my superpowers. So
those people who have neurodiversity issues can connect the dots. Just saying.
Awesome.
Right,
lovely.
go ahead.
Thank you for confirming that. Very well there, Gail. And so then I was like, well, I've got to create a business out of this. Like you, Gail, I know your story. It's like when you did the life coaching that you went down that path. So I was like, I've got to create a business out of this. This is like, what I'm here to do. And so I started my business coaching mentoring path. So my first business has been almost 6 years now. And that business coaching mentoring is about 3 years that I've been doing that. And helping business owners, right, to help them grow in all different areas of business. I wanted to, and mindset was a big part as well, because I've the NLP master like yourself, as well as, you know, the strategies, tactics, and tools that people know, because they all work together in business. So wanted to learn all of that, and yeah, then you know, got my podcast and just doing a lot of cool things. So you know, it's been a challenging journey, but I've leaned in, and I've had to keep up leveling myself along it as well.
And I love the leaning in, and up leveling, and the pain that you were going through during that work. So the process of purposefully trying to get someone out the door and devaluing what they do. That's what happened to me with the last job that I was in, where I got fired. They wanted me out. And I know why they wanted me out, and that's fine. But the process for me made me wonder whether or not I was worthy. Whereas in my life as a successful person, I had no doubt of my capability. Now I'm allowing this group of strangers place doubt in me, right? They couldn't do that if I didn't already have it there. Right. So the good news is, you know, that I got fired, and, you know, people have heard this story, if you've listened to my podcast, that it was the best thing. And so the pain that you're going through and the stress, you know, stress is terrible on the body. And what I hope for people who listen to my podcast, they listen to the stories. And so I want you to talk about what that time of your life, because I want them to identify with it and understand they don't have to go that far, right? The moment that you notice that this stress, oh, thank you very much, stress. You're telling me this is not the right place for me to be. What do I need to do? Right? So talk about what it's like living in those conditions. What were you going through at the time?
Yeah. You know, it was very, very challenging, to say the least. And I know you talk a lot about like alignment, and I definitely wasn't enjoying, right? When we go to a job or we've got our business, we should be enjoying what we do. We should be enjoying the people, and you know, feel like we're making a difference, you know, in what we're doing day to day. And it wasn't like that. And to, you know, to be to be looked at publicly, you know, with being treated like this publicly, humiliated, basically, right? And people, and not being able to really say anything at the same time, right? Because because if you say something, then, you know, it's going to get back, and everything like that. So you sort of have to be the bigger person, but it's like everything coming in your direction, and you can't really, you know, voice your opinion to others, because it could, you know, change that situation. So that was, it was extremely challenging. And, you know, and looking back at it now, my housemate at the time and other people were like, you know, why don't you just leave? And that was probably would have been the smarter thing, right, to just do it then. But I was right at the end. At that moment, I was 9.5 years, right, working there. So to get my long service in the state, I needed to work there for at least 10 years, which I'm getting multiple months payout, right? So there was 6 months minimum that I had to work to be able to get that paid out, which is very interesting that they did it at that time, right? It's like
it's not interesting at all.
No, that's right.
Okay. So mine was vesting time. Yes.
That's right. So they wanted to like get away with, you know, paying me out a big sum of money. And I was like, no, that's all right. So that was a driver, because it was like, okay, you're trying to not only berate me, but to get out of that. And I stayed even longer. But I guess one of the lessons that I took out of this is that with everything in life, and stress is one of them, but there's a lot of things, we all have thresholds in what we do. And it's almost like, you know, pushing that boundary on the threshold. And it could, you know, be in sport or other things. So, you know, you could feel this little bit of stress and like, okay, well, I don't want to feel stressed too much. But then the next time you do something, you could feel a little bit more stress. And then that little bit of stress doesn't necessarily feel as much stress, you know, is not as stressful, because you've gone to outside your comfort zone and maybe feel a little bit more stress, you know, in that moment. So I guess the positives, because I always like to look at the positive situation, there's always good things that come out of things, is that I have an extremely high stress threshold now, is that I basically rarely feel stress. Now, the body may feel it a little bit, but in terms of me being able to function, right, at a high level, I rarely feel it myself in the moment. But I need to be aware of my body at the same time and being able to, remove those stresses. So I'm quite aware of that. So I think, there's a way of, sometimes you don't want to necessarily go too far on the threshold because it can be detrimental to you, depending on what that is. If it's not stress, if it's something else, right? But sometimes we need to push a threshold in, like, let's say, our comfort zones and things like that to then make things more comfortable as we grow. So I think that's a big lesson that I took from that, and something that I can take from that, going forward, and something to just for everyone to realize that, sometimes, that little bit of moment, you can change it, but you can look back and go, okay, I can now take this forward in what I'm doing and be better in my life and whatever.
Right. What did you gain from that? What did you, not only the lesson, but what did you gain? That's the gift. What did you gain from that? What's interesting about the stress threshold. So I'm going to actually take this to another level. This is one of the first management things that I learned very, very young, is that we all have a peak stress performance level, right? And so we may be able to take more stress, but we're not at our peak performance. And everybody's peak performance level is different. The downward size is not a bell, guys. It doesn't go up and come down gradually. The peak, when you hit the top, it's a straight drop down as far as productivity is concerned if you push it beyond that point. This was one of the first. I had a great HR team with the first management job that I had. Fabulous training that they provided to the managers and so forth. This was one of the first lessons. And so it was very important, I learned, to watch that my staff, each individual, did not go beyond their particular thresh level, that they were able to take stress to a certain point. And, a 28-year-old never going to college learning this stuff, right? It was fascinating. It was absolutely fascinating. So, so there's how you perform, right? But when you talk about stretching, I have a picture of an elastic, like stretching, right? And what you're talking about is not to stretch it too far, because then you break the elastic, right? But if you stretch it and then relax it, you have to relax it, guys, or it will break. Stretch it and then relax. It starts to get bigger. So that curve, it's still going to be straight down, but you're pushing it further, right? Because you're stretching the elastic, right? So your capability to function at a high level gets higher, if that makes any sense. Does that track?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
That's a great analogy and metaphor with exactly how it works.
Yeah.
For everyone there. It's really, really powerful. Definitely.
Yeah. And the key, though, you mentioned, is that you listen to your body so that you don't go to the crash. Because what happens is your productivity will crash. And if you're still pushing, then you will crash. I've 3 times have had a breakdown because I pushed too far. And I was 16 the first time.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Right. And I didn't know what was going on, but up at 6 o'clock in the morning, in school by 7 o'clock, out by 12:30, at work by 1, finished work by 9, home by 9:30, did my homework, and then up the next day. And on the weekends, of course, I went on dates. Right. Of course, I went out at night and partied. Right. So did I push? Was I pushing? Heck yeah. And I found myself just bawling for no reason whatsoever at work.
Yeah.
Right. Because I went straight down. Right. The second time it happened was when I realized this has happened before and I wasn't paying attention to the signs. The third time it happened, it didn't happen quite so hard because I was paying attention to the signs. Now it doesn't happen at all.
Yeah. And I think to get people an awareness of it, right? Because I had to build myself up to this awareness where, as you're younger, it's probably easier to push and things like that. But as you get older, you start to have to become more conscious of your energy because it can affect you more. And you know, we can all get tired, or we can sleep less, and there's all these different factors, right, that can help and you know, put more stress on the body, not just necessarily stress from the job, but because we're not sleeping as much because of other factors that are around us. So I notice with my energy is that I can now feel when, if I, for whatever reason, had a bit less sleep, or just my energy is really exert a lot of energy. And when that happens, I just go, okay, I know I'm not functioning. I'm aware now, right? I've like gone past that cliff, like you mentioned,
Right.
and I need to rest. I need to either go and sit on this little chair that I've got on the side. Maybe I go on my recliner for a little bit. Maybe I have a power nap. It depends, right? Like on what I'm feeling at that time, and how much I need to rest and what else I've got on for that day. But I know I need to rest for a short period of time, or it could even be long. Sometimes I've taken the whole afternoon off because I'm just like, I'm out of it because I've done a lot of energy output. So
Right.
being aware of that and when to listen to your body and do that rest is really important, even if it's a short 20 minutes.
You know, and here's the thing. So we're entrepreneurs, so we can arrange our schedule so that we have those gaps. I absolutely have to take a 10 or 20-minute power nap, or I'm no good. And I've always been that way. So when I was in corporate, it was a struggle. When I get when I push past the need, then I'm okay, right? But pushing past is really exhausting. I mean, I'm it's frustrating to do that. So now that people have had the opportunity to work from home and maybe get in flow with their day, how can they maintain their natural rhythm, right, when they have to go back to the office? The office doesn't offer the environment for a siesta. Back in, and I'm going to date myself here, 2000. I was working in this company, and we were just like playing, you know, what if projects, right? There were a bunch of us project managers, what if projects, right? And I said, we need a siesta room. This is 22 years ago. Well, what do you mean we need a siesta room? I want to crash every day, and I have no place I can go to crash for just 10 or 20 minutes. So let's draw up a project proposal for a siesta room. And what are all of the risks? What are all the scheduling issues? And what are all the arguments we're going to get from management if we send this to them, so we can address it in our proposal right away, right? And here's how we will schedule it. And here's how we will, right. I never saw it come to pass because I moved on to a different company. But I put together a proposal in 2000 for a siesta room because I needed to nap.
Yeah. And
Right.
and this shows, this is like Google, right? Like, you know, a lot of these bigger companies where they've got these sleeping pods and things like that at their business. The more forward-thinking, innovating companies know that, you know, people need, because everybody's energy is a bit different as well. You
Right.
know, I'm learning, you know, I'm not sure if you've delved into human design much, but you know, it's a powerful thing about understanding about different people's energies. Some people can go sort of all day like an Energizer bunny. Other people energies, you know, are more in spurts, right? And I'm more like that. It sounds like
Right.
you need, you know, a bit of a break, right, as well in what we do. So understanding that people have different energy levels, and then going, okay, well, how can we then give it? Now, obviously, you know, working from home is easier. You can just go take a nap, because really it shouldn't matter about clocking on and clocking off at 9 to 5, right? It should just matter about getting the work done. And then if you need to go to an appointment or you need to have a nap or whatever
Right.
it is, as long as you can, you know, work around it, start a bit earlier, finish a bit later, whatever it is around your schedule, that's the main thing that it should work. So how does the physical office, it needs something like you mentioned. The bigger companies are doing it. How do the smaller companies do it? Are they, you know, are they building this into, you know, into these shared co-working spaces or other spaces, right, where you can actually go in and relax? I think it's definitely important. Some people used to go into their car, you know, if they
Oh my
drove to
God.
work.
Yeah. I'll go in the bathroom.
or go to the bathroom,
And
right?
close
And
the
just
door. Yeah.
close the door and just put your head on against the thing,
Yeah.
and then see if you can get a bit of a sleep,
Yeah.
right? It's funny, right? But it's needed, and that's where you need to be aware of your energy and how people are, because not everyone necessarily needs it, but there's a lot of people that need it as well.
And so do you address any of those things with your clients? So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I guess from a human design perspective, I don't know if you know much about it,
I do.
Gail, but you do. Awesome.
Mhm.
So, there's a generator, right, which is like 70% of the population. And this is where people have just, almost endless energy. They go to bed and they wake up and they've got a full battery again, basically, right? I'm a projector. So what that means is that my energy is not the same. If I project a lot of energy out, then I need to recover that energy. So I did my 3-day business growth boot camp, and that was me presenting for 8 hours a day, right? That's a lot for me as my energy type. The next day I was thinking, and even up to 2 weeks later now, like I can still feel my energy is still working back into it. And I know people get IV drips, like, and things like that to sort of get them back into it. So it's really even more important. So I guess a key thing that I would say is understanding your human design. And energy is just one of the elements, right? There's so many things about it, about like how you make decisions, I think is a big one as well about human design, that I would say. But if we talk about energy first, is like understanding what it is, how you are made up. I think it's a very powerful model. And then going, okay, if you're a projector like me, it's like we're only probably supposed to work 5 hours a day technically. Now I work more than that at the moment because I, want to do more in my business, but the plan is to work less very soon because I'm doing things. But I take the breaks and I do certain things that allow me to then work a bit more and make sure I get into nature, all these other areas.
Right. I can't work for more than 4 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I need that break, right, to recharge. Right.
Yes.
So go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. So, for me, it's going out into nature and I ground, right? I literally take my shoes and socks off, and I take my dog now. I used to go by myself before, but I do multiple things at once by walking her and let her just play while I'm grounding and taking some deep breaths, right? At the park down the road, I probably look a little bit funny to people with my shirt and that, but I don't care about judgment, right? It's about me in that moment. And that helps me during the day. Or I can do that at my desk if it's raining or whatever, but that's a powerful way, not only just resting in the house, but getting out in nature and sort of, refreshing your energy in that way. But then, if I go on from the decision element of human design, I think is one of the most powerful. And you talk a lot about intuition, about instincts, about gut feelings. So instincts and gut feelings are actually two different decision matrices in human design. Now I'm an instinct. So my wife is a projector as well, right? But there's differences between us. We're not exactly the same in our design. And one of the key things is how we make decisions. My decision is instincts. In the moment, bang, I make the decision, right? What feels right for me. Her decision is gut feeling, which means she needs to feel into it. Now that could take seconds, minutes, hours, or even days, right? Sometimes for her to do that. So from a relationship perspective, or understanding how other people make decisions, that's very powerful in your life, in your business, because you're like, not everyone can make decisions instantly, not just because I can. So then understanding that element is really, really powerful. So now, when I'm with my wife, I know how to have a great relationship with her because I know I can't just say, let's do this, come on, make the decision. I need to just let her take a little time, however long that is. And then she'll come back to me. And I'm like, yep, let's do this or whatever like that. So I think that when you understand how that works and you put that on top of your energy, that's how you can really be in really true alignment in what you're meant to be doing moving forward. If it feels right, your instincts are telling you it's right, whatever it works for you, to be successful in your business or in your life as well.
Absolutely. And it's time. It's time for you listeners. It's time for me. It's time for you to start trusting that the natural rhythm that we were allowed to discover during the shutdown is your God-given gift, that you deserve to lead your life according to your natural rhythm, right? I think and I think that's where the great resignation that's happening right now is that people don't want to lose that, right? They've discovered it and they kind of like it. And it doesn't mean less productivity. And in fact, it means more productivity. I would say for any company that I worked for, and definitely in my business, I'm probably the most productive person you'll ever see. Right. And I am very much like you. I make a decision on the spur of the moment, and I can't tell you why. I'm just telling you this is right, this is what we're going to do. I just know. I just know. And it's not feeling, I just know. Right. But I am exhausted after 3 or 4 hours, but I wake up ready to go. Right. So I wake up and I have to slow myself down because it's only 4:30 in the morning. Come on. Right. You can sit down and have a cup of coffee and, maybe play a couple of games or maybe meditate. Right. Don't put that computer on. So I don't. I do have a rule that it doesn't go on until after 7:30. But
Nice.
once it's on, bam, and then I look up and it's noon and I'm exhausted. Right. And then it's time for a break. But the second wind is just the same, another 4 or 5 hours, right? I probably could take a third. In fact, that has happened. If I take a second nap, I know I'm doomed to not sleep that day because I just regenerated, I just refueled, and I'm ready to go for another sprint. So we're sprinters. That's what we are. We're sprinters, okay?
We definitely are.
Right.
That's why we do it. And we can, we can make more of an impact that way as well, because like you said, our efficiency levels, because we're sprinters, we can actually do a lot more or can make more of an impact. And that's even with our words. And I know you're a lot about communication.
Right.
Is as our words, as being the sprinter, means that we're there to not talk for necessarily long periods of time all the time, but our words in that short period of time can be bigger than words that people speak for a whole day.
They're very specific. I worked for a company, and I would be on these meetings with these high level executives, and they would go on and on and on and on and on and on, and they'd be like, right when they're finally done, I have this process where I'm going to tell you what I thought I heard you say, to be sure that the next step I take is in accordance with what you said. And so I'll say, so basically what you're saying is you want the report done by Friday. Well, if you want to put it that way, yes.
I know you didn't have to fluff all that other stuff. Right? It's like that's what you wanted.
Right. You spent 35 minutes and I spent 2.
Yes, so interesting, isn't it? And that succinctness is really powerful in business, and that's actually powerful from a coaching element or just understanding someone's problem. If we can articulate the problem more succinctly and better than what they can, people automatically assume that we have the answer right to that. So right. That's a very powerful realization in business, in life, in there. So if that should be a skill that we should be learning and reiterating back to people, because then we can help the other person, provide value, whatever it is in that situation.
Right. So it's fantastic. So any last words that you would like to leave, any gems, words of wisdom for people to take away?
Yeah. I would just say that dream big, like have a really big vision, purpose, mission, values, all of those things that become part of that. Like dream big, because a lot of the successful people, or if we go back to the regrets of the dying, is the biggest regrets are that they didn't do the things that was a bit uncomfortable and dream big. They just played it safe, right, in their lives. And it's easy to play it safe in what we do because it's comfortable there. And getting outside your comfort zone is one of those things you have to, it's like a muscle. You keep building it and you keep expanding. So dream big, do things that are a little bit scary, do things you haven't done before. And if you don't know how to do them, find a coach and mentor, find other people that can help you with your mindset or with the strategies, tactics, and tools to help you get there so you can get there quicker. And when you do that, you can really be in alignment with what you think you want to create in this world. Don't just do what other people are telling you to do. And when you do that and you have the support around you, we can literally do anything, and we can compress time with the support our coach mentors and other people around us to get there quicker so that we can live our best life. Because we're not here to work 12 hours plus a day. We're here to, not work a day in our lives, really, to really, work, live on purpose and do what's making a difference in this world and be able to enjoy ourselves and have fun and whatever that means to you, travel and things like that. So dream big. Get the people around you that are going to support you to get you there as quickly as possible so you can, be in alignment and live your ultimate life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so we will have all of this stuff in the notes for sure. So, so Athin, we can reach you where? I've got LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Like, where can we reach you?
Yeah, there's many places.
And all of that will be in the notes, guys. So you don't have to write.
Yeah, I'm on all the platforms, but big on LinkedIn. So there's only one of me, Athin Cassiotis. So it's ATHIN CASSIOTIS on LinkedIn, or my website, athincassiotis.com. You can see everything about my coaching, mentoring, consulting, speaking, my podcast. All the links are through that. And I've got a free ebook about having a bulletproof business mindset. So I know you're a lot about mindset here as well, Gal. So people can just go on my website and get that free ebook. Awesome. And a lot of great information there and enjoy it. So it's been a pleasure being on your show. Thank you, Gal. And feel free to reach out to me if you want to discuss anything further.
Oh my goodness, this has been so much fun. Always so much fun. And we will talk again. So everybody, thank you so much for joining me on the Empowering Process podcast. If something came up for you, just leave it in the notes and maybe Athin and I will be able to get back together and address your question. If you know somebody who could maybe get something from this discussion, share it out to them. And as always, do subscribe, let us know that you care about it because we care about you. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Empowering Process podcast. Be sure to visit Gail at gailcraft.com to learn more about how she serves thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and goal seekers. And remember, if you like this broadcast, be sure to share and subscribe so you don't miss an episode.